the Trojans fought, they did. They played great. Absolutely second half, absolutely shutting out the Wolverines. You had the pick six, but really they were unable to do anything on offense. The adjustments made by the coaching staff, the changes to personnel and the way the guys battled, really in a loss, there is no such thing really in college football as having these, moral victories. But I would tell you this, USC, my thoughts about this team have changed only in one position group. And I've downshifted. I haven't given up on the season as far for that group. But for all the other position groups, I am more than happy with what I saw on Saturday, Matt. What are your thoughts just initially about the game?
Well, right before coming on the air, I filed a story, for on this Michigan game. And the basic theme of this story is you don't get a medal or prize for being mostly good. You don't get a prize or a special ribbon of achievement for winning 75-80% of your defensive snaps. I don't know if anyone watched the Saints-Eagles game earlier today. I mean, I didn't, but I followed the game along with all the other NFL games. And the Saints held the Eagles to 7 points in the first 56 minutes. But then when the game was on the line, the Saints let the Eagles march right down the field and win. And that's what USC Michigan was. That for 56 minutes, the USC defense basically did its job, basically played really well. But then when the game was on the line, all the chips on the table, for all the Tostitos, to use that familiar Brent Musburger term, when it was all hanging in the balance, the defense didn't get it done. And that doesn't mean the defense is the main reason USC lost. Of course not. It's the offensive line. We'll obviously talk about that. But you don't get a prize in sports for being mostly good. You get the prize in sports for finishing. And that was Pete Carroll's mantra. And Pete Carroll always loves to say, can you win a game in the first quarter? No. Can you win a game in the second quarter? No. And it was all about finish, finish, finish. And, Tim, you were there for the 2007 Rose Bowl. It was an ugly game in the first half. USC finished. USC kicked Michigan up and down the field in the second half, left no doubt, put it to bed, time-stamped it. And that's what we were expecting. Michigan threw for just 32 yards. They could not throw the ball down the field. So you're thinking Michigan gets the ball at its own 11, 4 minutes left, has to drive 89 yards. You think, okay, USC defense should seal this puppy up. And instead, John Humphrey misses the tackle, allows that 63-yard run. And so being mostly good and being good for most of the day didn't lead to a win. And USC did not finish. And that's just painful because Trojans did a lot of good things. But when you don't do the good things in the game's most important moments, you walk away with an L. And that's just the unfortunate reality of what we saw.
Yeah. I had to live my own Trojan therapy on the way. I had to drive. You guys know, I had family in Grand Rapids, about a 2-hour drive from the stadium. And I'm cruising in the cheapest little rental car you can ever imagine, just going down the freeway with all this construction. And I'm listening to the Rain of Troy people, by the way. They do a great job over there. And one of the cool points I think Alicia made is she said that if you take, now she admitted, look, it's the game in totality. You can't take out 3 plays. But if you think about it, what was it, Matt? They rushed for 280 plus yards, right? But they got about 160 of those on 3 plays. And if you take those out, I believe she said the right number. I believe it was something like a little over, just barely over 3 yards even per carry. And I mean, we've had 2 teams now with legitimate offensive lines try to run the ball down our throats. And we had a couple issues with gap integrity and guys broke loose. And then on the last one, there was that he broke the tackle. But man, USC's defense made them fight for every yard. I mean, how many 4th down conversions, whether or not they got it off of the clock or not, were they able to get a first down on? I mean, they really had a fight for every yard. And that is something that you need to look at. Yes, they lost the game. Yes, Michigan is a great defense. I want to address this really quick, if you don't mind. We don't have a call yet. Where was it? I just saw it. Dang it. So, Wonder if Tim still thinks the Big Ten defenses are overrated. I don't think all the defenses are overrated. I don't think I've ever said that. I don't think, but here's the thing. I think a lot of them are. It's just like the SEC. Everyone wants to think if you're an SEC, you're a great team. You're not. You're not. And not every team is Michigan's defense. So let's relax on making that comparison. And by the way, I think USC did pretty well. I mean, I'll pull the stats up for you, but it's not like we got Iowa. I mean, we put up 24 points. We really made some great adjustments in the second half. Both Miller and Lincoln Riley at the press conference after the game said that, I mean, Riley says he definitely a second to last drive, but also Miller said they couldn't get on pace in the first in the first quarter. So yeah, there was some issues, but you guys remember this. It was loud. Anyone that told me that's not loud in the big house, I was hearing from a bunch of people. It was loud at Michigan Stadium, especially on that last drive when SC was trying to get down to field goal range. It was up there with any stadium I've ever been in. So kudos to Michigan. Also, whatever I'm going to say throughout the rest of this, if Michigan fan, if you take this as a slight on your team, don't, because I'm not. I have a lot of respect for your defense. I think you guys have some major issues on offense. Once teams get the tape of this game, I bet you if you gave Danton Lynn the tape of this game last week, he could have prepared for it. We might have seen a different first half. He was able to make adjustments and bottled up Matt in the second half. So I think Michigan needs to make some adjustments, just like we saw USC. USC, second year they're doing this. We're doing the offensive line rotation, the revolving carousel on the right guard and left tackle. I mean, really, we're kind of all over the place. The only guy that was consistent on that line, and even Jonah Monheim had some moments, but it was Emmanuel Pregnon, and he really should get kudos for what he did in this game. I think he did a great job, but the rest of the line struggled. We knew they were going to struggle, Matt, with this defensive line.
I don't think we knew they were going to struggle. I think a lot of people were fairly confident, but I, was a little more skeptical than most. And so, let's talk about that. I mean, now, first off, let's give Josh Henson a little bit of credit in that at halftime, the adjustments that were made with Tobias Raymond going to right tackle and Mason Murphy sliding over to left tackle. Hey, that's an adjustment which worked. And so I'm thinking that should be the starting offensive line for Wisconsin. And Elijah Page, he got blown up in this game. Elijah Page was a disaster. And it doesn't mean he shouldn't get reps, but I don't think he should be starting against Wisconsin. That's for sure. You have to reward performance on the field and in practice. I don't think you can just put Elijah Page back in as a one. I think he should be sliding down the depth chart. So I would expect that, if we are going to get accountability, and accountability is so much of the deal at an elite program or a program that wants to be elite, you have to have accountability. Pete Carroll had that. That's why he was such a great coach. I don't see how you can have Elijah Page starting against Wisconsin, and he has to earn that starting status back. If anyone else on the offensive line is mediocre enough for him to be able to leap back up the depth chart. So I give Henson credit for the halftime adjustments like that. The USC's third quarter was excellent. The third quarter was magnificent. But then we have to ask, what about the other three quarters, right? And so the other thing that has to be said about the offensive line, obviously we're going to have a lot of things to say, but just the other thing immediately to say, right off at the top, is that did anyone see LSU struggle with UCLA at home? LSU was tied with UCLA at halftime in Baton Rouge, and the final margin was just 17 points. Indiana beat UCLA by 29. LSU at home in SEC country beat UCLA by a modest 17 points. I would expect that when we, USC, plays UCLA, we should beat UCLA by 40, but we beat LSU by only 7. So are we just 20, 24 points better than UCLA? If we're only 20 points better than UCLA, and I'm not saying we are, but I am saying that LSU's mediocre win over UCLA is worth noting, because maybe LSU sucks. Maybe LSU is just not that good. And I say that because Texas looks like the real meal deal. And Texas really seemed to make Michigan a lot more physical. Texas really seemed to wake up Michigan on a lot of levels. And so USC going against LSU, it seemed as though one team learned a lot more than the other one did. And Michigan really ramped it up from the Texas game. USC did not ramp it up from the LSU game. You know, Michigan was punching USC in the mouth for a lot of this game, certainly the Michigan defensive front against the USC offensive line. So hopefully this is the wake-up call the offensive line needs. Maybe the offensive line thought it was better than it was. Well, now we know that's not the case. And now the real work begins for Josh Henson.
I like those points, Matt. Yeah. Again, we have to remember, just with the defense and with Miller and with this O-line, when we talk about Page getting blown up, he's a redshirt freshman. You know, how many starts does the guy have under his belt? And now you throw him in there against NFL defensive linemen in the big house. So there's a lot to unwrap there. Anyone deciding to throw I really do believe, as far as potential goes, you know, looking at all the young guys, to me, he does have the highest ceiling for potential. I did really like Tobias Raymond when he got in there. He had some good reps as well. Again, these guys are young, and just like anything, the more reps they get, the better they're going to get, the more they're going to gel as a team and a unit. So everything pointed in the right direction, Matt. Again, the good coaching, you see it in the third quarter. You see it in the adjustments, because everyone comes out, throws their first couple punches, but then it's how do they respond? And on both sides of the ball, like you said, from the O-line to the play calling for the most of the second half, and just the overall play, the defense considerably improved from first half to second half. And again, that definitely is, I think, the difference between the coaching staff at USC and the coaching staff at Michigan. So before anyone starts complaining, nobody's saying Michigan did not win this game. They absolutely made the plays they needed to do. It's sport. It's football. You make the plays you need to make. I caught a little bit of Mark's show last night, and I think it's fair. I gave him a lot of heat for saying question about USC's win against LSU, and Matt, I mean, it's starting to look like he was very right on the LSU issue. Looking also, though, he made the point. He said, you know what, Michigan won this game, but if you had to ask him, USC, just like Lincoln Riley said, won most of the plays. It's just they gave up those big explosives. And on that night, he believes that USC was a better team. I'm wondering if this game is played on a neutral field or this game is played 10 times, which team's going to win the most. And from what I saw, and so especially what I saw from the adjustments that were made, USC looks like a hell of an out for pretty much anybody in the Big Ten.
Well, I mean, it could be like you can see the potential in this team, and people are saying in the chat, and they're correct. You know, didn't play our best game, and yet still we could have won at Michigan. So like that does give you a glimpse of this team's potential. But I would say, let's not assume that this team's going to be great. Let's not assume that. I mean, again, I've just said it's possible. It's very possible. It's very possible the team grows from this game, learns its lessons, and goes in a steady upward trajectory. Very possible. I would not be shocked if that happens. But I also would say, let's not assume. And I think a lot of people were assuming this game was a W. And a lot of people were saying, we got this. You know, we're going to win. And I cautioned people, this was going to be a bumpy ride going on the road, first true road game of the season. And you know, from week 1 to week 3, or game 1 to game 3, like, you don't know how college football teams evolve. This is mysterious stuff. And we shouldn't be so quick to assume that USC was just going to establish the upper hand. And a few wild and crazy things happened. You know, and of course, USC stuffed Michigan on that 4th down in the first quarter. Michigan, the ball was in the left arm of the Michigan ball carrier. He gets turned to the side. He did not make the line to gain. And then Michigan, of course, springs the big touchdown run right after that. Now, that was unfair. It was unfair.
You know what I mean?
They didn't review. They didn't even
measure either.
Yes.
They didn't even measure it.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy. So like USC got jobbed, but you know, that is part of sports. You got to play through bad calls and you have to have a response at the ready. And, you know, but those things happen and USC has to be better. Like you know, if the officials are going to make some bad calls, you need to be 10 points better than the opposition instead of 3, right? You need to be better to the extent that a key bad call isn't the difference between winning and losing. So a lot of people, I think, were beginning to count their chickens a little bit, and now we realize, you know, just what an uphill battle it is. And so, you know, obviously Wisconsin first, and then Minnesota, but like that Penn State game, that is going to tell us a lot about this team. You know, when USC goes up against Penn State, will the team be ready from the jump? Will the team be ready to send a message in the first quarter? Because USC can't keep playing these games down to the very end. LSU decided in the final minute. Michigan decided in the final minute. Now, USC has been on the same level as its first 2 elite opponents. And, you know, there is something to be said once again. I mean, like last year, USC was playing cupcakes the whole month of September. Now, this year, the schedule's been really tough early on, but the cupcake game, like USC looked great in the cupcake game. But that's what happened last year, too. You know, USC shut down Stanford. USC absolutely smothered Nevada. And it's a reminder, looking absolutely dominant and awesome against a cupcake, it doesn't mean that you're then going to carry that forward. So I think it's just a lot of sobriety. It's a bucket of cold water, and hopefully USC gets that necessary wake-up call.
Well, I mean, yeah. So it's a loss, Matt. But I'm not downshifting my expectations. There are issues on the offensive line, like you said. They did make some adjustments. There's some hope there that they could right this ship. Because other than that, I am happy with where they played. You're right. You need to evaluate. We need to reevaluate LSU. We need to look at what elite teams like Texas did to Michigan, and know that we probably have to realize we're not there yet. But this is also only week 4, our 3rd game. And there's a hell of a lot of football he played. And, you know, a young, talented team with a great coaching staff, they can come a long way between now and the playoffs if they were lucky to make the playoffs. So I'm hopeful and I'm open-minded.